Forward to the finish means faith in the moment, one stride at a time. We're continuing in our nightly series and reading short testimonies that were published more than 20 years ago in a book, now out of print, titled Over and Over Again, 150 Adventists Share Faith Stories About Stewardship. Faith in the moment sometimes means following a conviction from the Lord that we need to mend our ways with His sustaining grace and meet the consequences of making things right with Him. Our first testimony this evening is a poignant story written by a man who served in the Michigan Conference faithfully for many years in an important responsibility. When he wrote this testimony more than 20 years ago, Hubert Moog had just retired as the treasurer of the Michigan Conference. Here now is village church member Rod Church reading a testimony written by Hubert Moog, The Loan.
As a child growing up in a small Adventist church in northwestern Ohio, I heard many sermons from pastors, evangelists, and local elders about the truths of the Bible. The matter of faithfulness in tithes and offerings brought conviction to my young heart. I began to return faithfully to God that which He claims as His, the tithe. As I grew older, I started giving offerings. During academy, I continued to follow these convictions and arranged for tithing of my school earnings. Upon graduation from Emmanuel Missionary College, now Andrews University, I accepted my first denominational position as an accountant at Wisconsin Academy. While there, I married my college sweetheart, and in due time, 2 little girls blessed our home. As is the case so often for families with young children, ours were only 13 months apart, the medical bills for childhood illnesses became a challenge to handle on our small denominational salary. In time, our share of the medical bills, expenses, and bills after health care subsidies made it very difficult to cover all our family expenses and continue to be faithful in returning tithe and offerings. We finally succumbed to the temptation not to return tithe and offerings on time. We steadily fell behind on those obligations until we were many months in arrears. My wife and I were conscience-stricken, but we didn't know how to catch up on our small salary. Finally, we decided we had to do something. We decided to borrow enough money to be up to date with the tithe offerings and a pledge we had made for a local project. Without anywhere else to turn, we borrowed the money from a local lending agency. The interest rate was high, but we wanted to be right with God. The high interest seemed a small price to pay for a clear conscience. Almost from that very day forward, our financial fortunes began to improve, slowly but steadily. While we have never been close to wealthy, the Lord has blessed us and has satisfied our needs. From that painful experience many years ago, we learned that joys and contentment that are ours when we put God first. We learn not to use His funds as we want, even when we are in financial distress. Then He is free to keep His promises of blessings for faithfulness. The scripture says, "And I will give them an heart to know me, that I am the Lord, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God. For they shall return unto me with their whole heart." Jeremiah 24, verse 7.
I think it is quite possible that the Lord allows us, in our sometimes well-intentioned short-sightedness, to get into awkward or embarrassing situations, just so that He can have the fun of getting us out of them, especially when our quandary all revolves around our desire to be faithful and faith-filled in our service to Him. Certainly that could be the lesson we draw from this next beautiful testimony written by Chuck Randall. The Randalls, Chuck and Barbara, Adventist business owners from Paw Paw, Michigan, have had a long and beautiful influence on the church in our own territory and far beyond. Barbara, for example, served more than 20 years as a trustee of Andrews University. She also served as a member of the Michigan Conference Executive Committee, the North American Division Executive Committee, the General Conference Executive Committee. Now, you notice she skipped one in there. She skipped the Lake Union Executive Committee, but Chuck stepped in to do that. They also have served in a variety of responsibilities as officers of Adventist Laymen's Services and Industries at the union and the national level. And they are, of course, pillars of the Paw Paw Adventist Church. So here now is Paw Paw Church member Chuck Randall reading a testimony written by Chuck Randall himself.
Thank you, Ron. After getting your call, I read this testimony again, and it just want to say that remembering how God has led us in the past is an encouragement to me today, and I hope that you will be on the same journey as well. Written 23 years ago, I have long felt that it is important for Adventist Christians to be actively involved in their communities. In keeping with this conviction, I have been privileged to serve my community as a trustee on the local hospital board. For more than 15 years, I have been the board chair, and it ended up being 26 years. This responsibility naturally has involved me in the Michigan Hospital Association and the American Hospital Associations. Several years ago, officers of the Michigan Hospital Association asked me if they could nominate me to run for a seat on the American Hospital Association on one of their councils. This would mark the very first time a trustee had ever attempted this. Positions on the American Hospital Association councils have always been held only by hospital executives, not trustees. When the balloting process concluded, my supporters were pleased when I was elected. I, of course, felt honored and humbled. I was interested to note that the first meeting of the council after my election would feature First Lady Hillary Clinton as the keynote speaker. But I was dismayed to learn that the event and future such meetings would be held on the Sabbath. I blushed to realize that I hadn't even thought about the possibility of a Sabbath conflict. What should I do? Many from my state association were proud of our accomplishments in getting me elected. It seemed to me that resigning would be letting them down. I considered how I could justify attending. I knew that some Adventists did choose to go to such events on Sabbath. After praying about my problem, I made my decision. With some considerable guilt feelings about disappointing friends, I called the woman in charge of this council at the American Hospital Association. I apologized for all the inconvenience I had caused and explained why I would not be able to serve on this council. I told her that because of my understanding of God's direction in the Bible, I had reserved all the Saturdays in my life for religious celebration. Having made my little speech, I was sure that this was the end of an embarrassing situation, and all I needed to do was get off the phone quickly. However, the gracious voice on the telephone apologized to me and said, "Mr. Randall, I'm sorry that you won't be at our first meeting, but if you will agree to serve on this council, I promise you that during the rest of your term, I will not schedule another meeting on Saturday." She went on to say, "This organization needs people with character and principles. I'm looking forward to meeting you." She was true to her word, and since that time, the council position has brought me in touch with senators, representatives, other government officials, and hospital leaders across the country. I've been convinced again of the value of community involvement by Adventist Christians and have renewed my confidence in a special promise recorded in the Bible. In 1 Samuel 2:30, it says, "Them that honor me, I will honor."
Forward to the finish means faith in the moment.
Please rise for our theme song, Let Us Run.